All right, Olivia, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I am so excited.
Me too. I know we could talk for hours like about everything, so this is great. We're here today to talk about social media and hopefully kind of reframe the idea of social media a little bit for people, because that is a difficult topic for a lot of people. So I'm going to start by having you kind of introduce yourself a little bit, and then I'm going to go and kind of set the stage for our conversation today. So can you tell me who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Yes, absolutely. So, my name is Olivia. I currently live in the wonderful city, Paris. I think a lot of people have different opinions about it. Either they love it or they hate it. There's no in between, but I personally, I love it. I have been living here for the last year and a half, and I moved here on an entrepreneurship visa. And I have been focusing on marketing consulting for founders specifically. But in the past, I have done everything from making billboards to doing ads and designing boxes, CAD designs, everything. So I have a real good understanding of marketing, especially in the direct to consumer world. And I now am really focusing on all of these founders who are finding the importance in building a personal brand, or even if you're a solopreneur, you needing this social presence that becomes very difficult when you have a million other hats that you're wearing. And so my philosophy and my goal is to simplify the process for the founder or for the solopreneur, and to be able to allow them to show up authentically and consistently on socials without them burning out. So that's kind of the whole spiel currently, and it's been so much fun working with different founders and different service providers and seeing how they find that freedom and they actually become excited about social media rather than it being something that is a daunting task that they know they have to do, but they don't know where to start.
Yep. Oh, I love it. That's great. That is a really good summary of why we connected so well when we met, because it's such a refreshing take on the marketing angle. And then also, again, setting the stage for this conversation. So let me go a little more detail into why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Um, I'm seeing in general right now a lot of disdain for social media. I think in general, my clients tend to be people who are not a big fan of social media. A lot of the times they come to me and they don't have personal social media, or they're on it very minimally. And so then they have to do social media for their business. And they're like, oh, and it's just this nails on a chalkboard kind of experience for them. And again, going back to who they are, they're generally people that are uh, very they're very focused on being authentic in the work that they're doing and in their life, as showing up as a genuine human,
Mhm.
in both of those spheres. And they feel like they can't do that in social media a lot of the time. That feels like a separate thing. A lot of them are doing social media in the way that they feel like they have to do it instead of any kind of way that feels genuine to them. So um, I'm seeing these feelings exacerbated right now even more with some feelings about the old social media platforms that have been around for a while, and some trouble with maybe some value alignment there.
Yes.
And then also the new platforms that are kind of coming up in that wake to try to be something different. There's excitement and overwhelm of like, oh my gosh, going and learning a new platform. So I feel like social media has been this topic for a
Right.
lot of people that they're just trying to sort out their feelings right now. And I thought it would be a great discussion to have with you.
Yes, so I am excited to get started, and I feel that pain as well. I completely understand and empathize with the idea of wanting to start something new, wanting to be on a platform that aligns with your values, wanting to crack the code on an old platform, and all of that, juggling all of it all at once feels impossible, but there are ways to be able to actually see results in this effort and it not be something that is too daunting.
Yeah, love it. Okay, well, let's dig in. So, I want to talk first of all about showing up authentically on social media. This is something you and I have talked about a lot. Um, at first, kind of getting at the idea that let's talk first about what does showing up authentically mean, because sometimes when I communicate that to people, they'll have these reservations of like, oh, I don't know, I want to share all of my personal life on there, different things like that. So tell me a little bit about what showing up authentically means to you.
I think a really good way that I put it is as I have built my own personal brand and I've shared about my life of moving to a different country and ending relationships and all of these things, I have chosen what I'm willing to sacrifice in my personal life that really only consists of about 1% of my life in total. And so I've found different subjects and topics and things that I can share that I feel comfortable sharing, and I package it in a nice kind of way where it's as if I'm giving them a lot of information when the reality is I'm giving them just such a small piece of it. And it still feels authentic to me because it is my story, but it's not my entire life. I'm not oversharing and being, you watch those videos sometimes of like people crying on the internet and you're like, ah, like, do I have to do that in order to get engagement? Like, I don't want to cry on the internet, but
Yeah.
being able to find something, a part of your life, whether that is you as a business owner and you're talking about your past failures and how it's made you grow. There's that, but then it doesn't have to go into the new products that you're developing or the new services that you're developing or your finances, anything like that. You can still have some privacy, but still be able to share kind of the journey that you've been going through. And so I think when it comes to authenticity, it's being able to find something that excites you and that you're willing to share about your life that doesn't consist of everything.
Yeah. 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 I think some of the big takeaways that I've had from having conversation with you about this already has been that, you don't have to share everything. Showing up authentic doesn't mean that you have to share everything. You can
Right.
still choose what feels comfortable. It's
Mhm.
more about how you approach the content that you do share.
Yes.
And I like to talk about it as like these people, again, going back to the people that I love to work with, are very connection focused humans. They're relationship oriented. And
Mhm.
I like to imagine that social media can be that for them as well. That when you're writing a
Right.
social media post, think about talking to a friend instead of thinking about having, the most optimized post that's hitting all of the trendy things, that's going to, like, that doesn't feel like you at all.
Right.
Like that's the type of showing up authentic that I tend to think about.
Yes. And I think even kind of adding on to that is what I tell people. It's actually you're doing a disservice not sharing about your life and about your business. And there is always going to be someone who is in need of hearing your message. And so if you kind of come from that place of, okay, there are actually people out there that want to hear what I have to say, that are interested in what I'm building, it kind of creates a little bit more momentum and excitement to show up authentically and to be able to share the good, the bad, the ugly. And people will then start responding to it. And then it's kind of like a ping pong effect. It's like they respond to it, and then you're excited because, oh my gosh, somebody is responding to my authentic approach on social media. This is so exciting. And then you post a little more, and then they respond a little more. And you're like, oh, wait, this is working. This is great. And then it
Yeah.
really allows you to kind of keep that ball rolling without feeling like you have to try new things or without feeling like you have to be a different version of yourself. It's once you really put yourself out there and you kind of take that risk and you see the result and the reward of what happens when you are authentically online. I think it makes such a difference. And then you really see, okay, yeah, this was worth it. This is why I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah, I feel like everything you just said could be great dating advice.
Oh my
This
gosh.
feels
Yes.
this feels like you're building a relationship, right? And it takes the
Mhm.
vulnerability, and it takes trust that that
Right.
person, your audience out there, that they're also a real human having an experience, and they're going to resonate with your real experience that you're sharing, and that lets them connect. Like, posting some of the social media that you see out there might get them to click on it, might give them some information, but that forming the connection with
Right.
another human takes being vulnerable and sharing that experience and trusting them to be a human in return and building that relationship.
Exactly. I just said to a friend, I said, you're never going to find a partner if you just stay inside all day. You need to go outside. And that's
That's,
the
yeah.
thing with social media. You're never going to find that connection if you never post anything, if you never show up and you never create a door for people to walk through to actually build that connection.
Yes. Yeah. And reframing social media as the place to make a connection. I feel like that was there in the beginning and then we've lost it in all of these other things, but thinking about it in that capacity makes it such an easier, like that alone makes it so much more accessible for me, who
That's
I'm a person that is a relationship based human, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's a way that I can connect with other humans, you know.
mhm,
So I like that type of reframing. That's
absolutely. Me too.
great. I love it. And so, yeah, again, doesn't have to mean that you're unprofessional, doesn't have to mean you post pictures of your children if you don't want to, doesn't have to mean any of those things. It's just showing up in a real way for your audience and bidding for that connection.
Yes. And I think a lot of people hear the word authentic and they think like, oh, me in the morning when I have my messy bun and I'm wearing sweatpants, and you're like, that's the authentic version of me. Well, it doesn't have to look like that. You can still be put together and you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be unprofessional. I think we can sometimes like look at those as like opposing ideas of like
Yeah.
authentic and professional, but you can be authentic and professional at the same time. You can have a very targeted message while still being yourself and still being genuine in the way that you're delivering it without it having to be you in a suit and a tie and this nice bright lighting and a perfect
Mhm.
script. You can still be yourself. That's really how people connect. They're not looking for a robot. They're looking for somebody that they can know, like, and trust. And it's much easier to know, like, and trust somebody when it feels like a friend rather than somebody that's like telling you what to do or is being very robotic about it.
That's a great summary. I love it. Okay, awesome. So authenticity, that is, I feel like one word that people don't usually associate with social media. Another word that I want to explore is joy. Not a lot of people
Yeah.
find joy in posting and social media content. And I know that some of the work that you do is helping people kind of rediscover that joy and find a place of joy. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I think even I always like to start kind of from my own experience and my own perspective because that's really where, I'm my own test subject. And so I have to start with myself and then I kind of work my way out. And I remember when I was really wanting to build an audience online and I was having such a hard time finding time, first of all, and finding the inspiration and the excitement to post. And I finally just started kind of seeing this pattern of me like in the shower and I think of an idea and then I like would try to, create the idea 2 days later and the spark would be gone. I would be so uninspired, so unexcited. And so I started propping my camera up like after I took a shower and I would be doing my skincare routine at night and I'd be talking about whatever idea it was, and it felt like I was FaceTiming a friend, and I would edit it in bed. I would spend like 10, 15 minutes just doing the worst edit ever. As long as I had the ums and the likes out, I'm like, okay, that's good enough. I would throw a caption on there, and those were my best performing videos. And it's so crazy to look back on those and think, wow, this really was like the scrappiest, most unconventional way of doing things. But I didn't have time to do it any other way. I knew that if I was going to wait and let that excitement go by, it wasn't going to be effective and I wasn't ever going to post anything. And so I created a formula for myself that worked. And I think that's where, when I think about all of the content that I've created in all of the years, that has been the most joy-filled, where it was a little bit spontaneous. It was still structured in a way where I had an idea, I executed it, and then I posted it. But the joy in it really came from doing it in the moment that I really wanted to and talking about things that I wanted to talk about. And
Mhm.
I think that's one of the things that people really struggle with is finding the subject, finding the thing that they are excited to talk about. And so I have something called the 3-minute rule. And what I do is I encourage my clients to take 3 minutes. I usually give them a prompt of like, what's the reason behind your business, or what inspired your business? What's been an exciting thing that you've been working on, or what's a passion of yours within your business? And I have them just talk for 3 minutes on their phone and the little voice memo, and then they transcribe it. They take a look, they copy and paste it, put it into their favorite AI tool, and they ask their AI tool, what are compelling phrases or sentences in what I said, or what are some content ideas, or even what is a video script that I could use based off of my own voice, because this is my voice. I'm just rambling here for 3 minutes. And the amount of magic that comes out of that, where they're like, I didn't even think about how excited I was when I talked about this moment, or I didn't even realize that this could be an entire series right here. And the joy and the excitement that comes out of the fact that they realized, oh, I do have something to talk about and I'm really excited about this. It's the best thing in the world when there's that aha moment and you're sitting on the other side of the video call and you're like, right, right. Like, so that's kind of my 3 minute rule, where I encourage them to just sit and speak and then listen and observe, and the things that come out of it really spark so much excitement and a process that will actually bring joy instead of stress and frustration.
That rule is so fun because it's so simple and it just like it makes me laugh. I remember the first time you told me, I was just like, oh my gosh, that is just brilliant because it's so hard to tell when you're just spilling things out. Like you don't see those moments. Like you're watching other people and you can see them light up. You can see their eyes get bigger. You can see them lean in or they're talking faster. And you're like, oh, they're very excited about this. They're very passionate. And it's so appealing when people are doing that. Like when people are really lighting up about something, it just like it captures you and pulls you into it too. And so
Yes.
for someone to help you identify about you, the things that you notice, like I also after some practice, I notice the little physical cues of when I'm doing this. Like I can feel my eyes getting a little bit bigger, or I can feel
Yes.
myself like talking really
Leaning
fast. And I'm like,
in
oh,
even.
okay, I'm
Yeah,
excited about this. Yes.
right.
But to be able to talk and then listen to a recording is such a great way to just have a quick like, oh, there it was. I'm very excited about this. And then you could go off on that forever. And I love that idea.
And you don't even have to put it into AI. I mean, you really can just sit there and listen, like you said, and you can hear it. It's that moment where you can hear the smile, or there's a little bit of a giggle that comes after a sentence that you say. And you're like, wow, okay, I am passionate about this. And I have so
Mhm.
many more things. Like, this is the thing I think about when I'm walking down the street. Of course, I have a million content ideas for this.
Yeah.
And then being able to really structure it in a way that lets you execute it is kind of the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just the having a social media post that is kind of, some formulaic thing you think you should be doing that you're forcing yourself to do versus talking about something you're excited about, whether it's your business or your plants or, your dog, whatever it is, like it just captures differently. Like that's what people are going to connect to. So I love the idea of standing in that space. And I think this concept of joy in general for me is really tied in with creativity as a whole. I'm a really big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, so I'm going to reference some things there. So great. But she talks about creativity just being a natural thing for all of us.
Mhm.
Whereas we tend to have this idea that some people are creative and some people are not creative. But it's part of like being human to be creative, right? And so I feel like that your story about getting inspired in the shower and when you're speaking from a place of an idea hitting you, like that's that creative moment to be able to kind of hold on to it. She talks about that a lot in Big Magic and like get it out while it's there or the
Yeah.
idea disappears, And I really love that idea of just like taking advantage of where you're at and your natural creativity and your natural joy. Everything that you just talked about is very much like just reflect inward and
Mhm.
speak from your natural place instead
Right.
of like go be someone else, which is what everybody feels like they need to do.
Absolutely. And I call that like the window of opportunity where you think of an idea and it gets you excited. You kind of get a little warm and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is brilliant." And then life gets in the way and your next meeting is in 30 minutes or you need to go eat lunch or whatever. There's always something that's going to kind of push it back further and further. And what I really encourage people to do is to understand that there is still an element of responsibility when it comes to creating content, and it's you have to prioritize it in some way or the other. And what I personally like to do is I like to prioritize it then, and it might be a shorter amount of time, which means that I don't have enough time to nitpick it. I don't have enough time to set up my tripod and make sure the lighting is perfect and that my hair is smoothed out. It means I actually really do have to show up authentically, whether I'm wearing makeup or not, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And because I'd rather preserve that moment of inspiration and motivation and momentum than say, okay, well, I need to appear a certain way, or I need to make sure that I say all the right things. And then it never, ever, ever happens because
Yeah.
then a million other things or new ideas come up and then it just keeps getting piled down. And I find that when I create content from that place of inspiration and when that moment strikes, it's faster. I have a timeline. I have a timer in my head where I'm like, okay, I have 15 minutes because I have a meeting, or I have
Hmm.
15 minutes because I need to leave to go to lunch. And that content, it's kind of like it's a phenomenon. It's like, oh, I spend an hour on a video and it gets 100 views. I spend 5 minutes on a video and it gets 100,000 views. And it's like, how did this happen? And that's how I lean into it. And so
Yeah.
I think that being able to really understand and prioritize that window of opportunity and tell yourself, okay, either I do this for an hour later or for 15 minutes now, and you could even just create the video and then edit it later, or write the caption or the LinkedIn post and then do the rest later. But if you can just get a draft done,
Hmm.
that will make a world of difference in the consistency that you're wanting to, kind of create within your content creation process.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think even in general with working within the space that you're in, like sometimes I'm more creative, big picture, sometimes I'm more focused, detail, day to day, and being able to take the tasks that are one or the other and stay in that space when I
Right.
feel like I'm in that space is infinitely more efficient for me. So
Yes.
yeah, I feel like that should just pour right over into social media as well.
Right. And it's all about sacrifices. We have to sacrifice things within our business. There are some days where I have to work a couple hours later than I want to. And I know that I'm doing it in order to better my business or in order to whatever the phrase you would want to put there. But I think that goes for social media as well. And I think the hardest part about it is you're not seeing a direct return instantly. If you're working on a proposal and then you send a proposal, or you're working on a new product and then you sell that product, like you get kind of an automatic, there's already a return and a reward. But social media, sometimes it takes 10 videos, 15 videos, or 20 posts, whatever it may be, to see that reward. But the consistency has to be there in order for that to even start that snowball effect.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about how we have this kind of foundation of joy and authenticity and showing up in a real way. There's still these you called it kind of a sacrifice. There's still like you have to show up at some point. You have to make yourself do posts occasionally, if you're going to have a social media presence. There's certain ways that we can do this with like guidance and intention, to know that what we're doing is valuable and we're not just like shooting into the wind. So I want to talk a little bit about that side of it. Like, how do we bring back in some best practices, some structure to make sure that the authentic post we put out we know it's going to do something. We know it's going to like return back a little bit. So you've talked to me about your process a little bit that you go through with clients and how you set up content pillars and kind of have this way that you give them some structure to work within. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. So typically we start with a strategy. We do an audit. We see what they're doing well and where they can kind of improve, or where their competitors are doing well and where they personally have leverage and have like a leg up. And we find these kinds of, holes in their content that that they're able to kind of implement. And so we start with these content pillars where we say, all right, so for example, we've got a founder who has kids and has a dog that she's obsessed with and is working on new products. What can we do? And she wants to talk about all of those things, the complexity of being a business owner and a mother. So, what's one content pillar that we can talk about? And so she decides to talk about how she structures her day. And this is something that allows people who might feel in a similar position as her, to kind of lean in and be like, oh, I can learn from this person and maybe in the end, even buy her products. You never know.
Mhm.
But create that connection where there's that you're showing up authentically and you're finding that ideal customer, in a way that like where you're leaning in and where you're kind of showing yourself off rather than just your products. And so I always focus on what areas of our lives do we want to share, kind of how I was talking about that earlier. But and then we kind of create these pillars that really allow them to show up consistently. So we find things that they can do pretty regularly, that it could be like dropping off your kids and then you sitting in the car for an extra 5 minutes after carpool talking about how you structure your day so that you actually accomplish things, and how you view productivity. Or another content pillar could be, you've got a small business but you've got big problems because you're building something, and how you're learning how to lean into those things and find solutions, because that's the stuff that people want to hear about. They don't want to just see like the pretty pictures of your product or the nice tech decks, whatever. I think
Yeah.
they're really wanting to see the human aspect and element of it. And so we really take a look at what we can share there, what excites them, and then we build out these briefs essentially where you've got the concept, and then if it's a video where you want to talk to the camera, we do kind of that 3-minute rule again, where we say, all right, if you don't have a solid idea of what you want to say, just talk about it for a minute, and then we can go back and see what's been sticking out, create either a script or some bullet points, and be able to create that video and then push it out to the world. And then we optimize it by multiplying it. So that might go on TikTok, but then a LinkedIn post could go or a post could go on LinkedIn, and it is very similar. You can kind of take the transcript from the video and put it a little bit more into writing form. I think that's the other thing, is we feel like we always have to have new ideas every single time, when we already have so many things that we can share, and we just have to repurpose it a little bit. And it might take 10 minutes to repurpose something that you posted a year ago that performed well. And especially as somebody who's doing it all themselves, repurpose, repurpose, repurpose. And I don't say copy paste, I say repurpose. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do. And even going to your camera roll right now, and if you're like, I want to start posting today, right now. If you're like me, I personally have 35,000 photos and videos on my camera roll. So for me to say I have nothing to post is the biggest lie I have ever told. And so I look back and I say, okay, are there any videos or photos from the last time I was at an event, or the last time that I went to a conference, or when I was in office with a client, or at the manufacturing facility of my product, and being able to then remember that and tell a story about that moment. And it can be a 5-second reel that you put text overlay on top of. It doesn't have to be this big production, but learning how to really simplify the process by creating a structure and then repurposing and multiplying that content, I think is kind of the first place that we start.
I love that. Repurposing content. I'm such a big fan because I end up working with people that have just like years and years of all of this great content, and then they're racking their brains to create something new, like you said. And I'm like, there's a lot here.
Yes,
And
and think
being,
about,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I would say that think about how many different platforms there are and how many times people are posting. Even if you posted something again that you posted from a month ago, the likelihood that the same people are going to see it is very slim.
Yeah, 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 which is, a little sad, but also
Yeah.
very inspiring.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're thinking like every time you feel like you want to post something, if you're posting when inspiration strikes and then the rest of the time you're able to repurpose content, that just takes a huge weight off. I think you put so much work into this blog post that you wrote or in this interview that you did, and like there's a lot of great content there to be able to pull out. Um, and some people do that themselves, some people have teams to help them with that, but then also we've talked about ChatGPT a little bit already in this, and that's we're going to do a future roundtable on AI, because there's just, you're like, how do I use this? And using it as a tool in this kind of way to pull out patterns, pull out highlights of existing content feels like a great way to do that. It's not writing from scratch, it doesn't have to feel icky, but you're pulling out from your existing content and it's helping you form what could be a valuable content to post in there. It feels like a great direction.
Definitely. And I think also we've talked about this, but really going to the platforms that work for you. I am not somebody who likes Twitter. I'm calling it Twitter because that's my fight. I'm like, I will never call it X. It is Twitter to me. And but I'm not going to post on Twitter. It's not going to happen. And I'm not going to break my neck trying to make it happen either. And if you're somebody who really hates Instagram, but for some reason Facebook works for you, then lean into that. Don't feel like you have to be Facebook. I mean, you have to be Instagram. Or if
Yeah.
you love TikTok, then lean into that. If that is kind of sparking that joy and that curiosity and excitement, do it. Don't feel like you have to be on every single platform. And I think I find a lot of my clients, they feel like they have to be doing nothing or doing everything. And
Mhm.
that is the biggest lie. And it seems as though everybody is on every platform when they really aren't. And if you can prioritize posting even just a few times a week on one platform, it makes a difference. It is so much better than posting nothing on nothing.
Hmm. Yeah, or trying to post everything on everything. Because
Yes.
going back to our authenticity talk, when you're stretched out so thin that you're trying to post on 10 different platforms, and you're not really showing up on any of them, the idea, people have this idea of like, what if I'm missing people on this one outlet? I got to add myself to everything, but you're still missing them if you're not showing up well for that. So how
Right.
can you be reasonable about where you're at? I love the idea of showing up on the ones that just like spark that inspiration and curiosity for you in particular, because we're all different and different platforms are going to be more appealing for us.
Right.
Thinking about where your audience is, just picking some and kind of leaning into what feels good to you feels like great advice.
Yes, because the likelihood of longevity is much higher when you're doing it on a platform that you like rather
Hmm.
than doing it on a platform that you feel like you have to like or you feel like you have to be on. That's like you're gonna get 2 weeks into posting and then you're ghosting it and it's never you're gonna forget the password, you won't even remember your login, and then it's just going to be this graveyard of an attempt when
Yeah.
really you could find excitement and joy in posting on a platform that you feel good about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know you have some great resources kind of exploring some of the new platforms in particular, because, people are like, should I be on there? I don't know. What is this
What
all
is
about?
Substack? What's Blue
Yeah.
Sky? Yes.
So I'm going to share some of those in the notes of this as well, so that people can kind of explore and get like a base understanding of what the platform is, and just, pause and think about whether it feels like a good fit for you before you dive on into it. Check in
Mhm.
with how social media is feeling already, maybe on the platforms you are on. Yeah, I think that's all great advice.
Yes. And I think one of the last things as far as simplicity goes is realizing that 80% of it is your mindset. I think that we really struggle to recognize kind of the the pain that it is and the struggle that it is to put ourselves out there for everyone to see us, for everyone to perceive us how they might, and we can't control it. Once it's live, we're like, "Oh no, what have I done?" And so I've been really talking to a lot of my clients about the mindset of not only having a product or a post that's done and not perfect. Like that's the goal is, does this represent myself? Does this represent my business? And is this how I want the message to come across? That's really the baseline that we create for ourselves in our content, rather than, does the makeup look good? Does the lighting look good? Is the audio perfect? Is the background song perfect? Because that stuff doesn't matter. I can't tell you the last time that when there was a message that really pierced my heart, I was like, and they had incredible lighting. Like that just doesn't happen. You've never said that. It might be beautiful and artistic, but like you're never going to be like, "Oh my gosh, and the audio was so crisp." Like you don't say that. It's the message.
Uh,
If the message gets to the right person and actually feels it resonates with them, that's the purpose. That's the goal.
yeah.
It's not to impress people, it's not to appear perfect and professional. It's really just to create that human to human connection. And so once people kind of realize that, they can kind of like then have a little bit better of a grasp on the idea of that, what they call the spotlight effect. And they're more willing to kind of maybe step into the spotlight and say, okay, I can put myself out there and I
Mhm.
am willing to be perceived in a weird way by one or two people if that is something that really impacts another. Um, and there are plenty of videos that I can think of that I've shared that people are like, "That was so weird. Why did you post this?" And then there's one DM that's like, "Thank you so much. I really needed this." And I'm like, "Okay, it was worth it. It was worth
Yeah.
the one person being like, 'Who the heck is this girl?'" For
Hmm.
another person to say, "Thank you so much for sharing this. I needed it."
Yeah.
Um, and so as long as you're willing to kind of put yourself out there and climb that cringe mountain, it's worth it in the end. And you'll find those connections, you'll find those new customers, you'll find those new clients, and they'll stick around too.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think something I talk about a lot, whether it's on social media or just in your business in general, and maybe in your life, is connecting with the people that you really want to connect with versus focusing on connecting with the masses. You
Mm.
don't have to, not everybody has to like you as a human, as a business owner, as someone on social media. You're not trying to reach. I think that it's really easy for your mindset to slip into that when you're on social media. I need all the followers. I need all the connections. I need to reach massive numbers. And it's great to reach people. We're trying to get visibility, and I understand that. But ultimately, you're trying to connect with the person that needs you and your services, and you're going to be making a difference to that one person who DMs you, and they're going to work with you and they're going to stick around. And it's going to be this real relationship because you showed up in a real way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And oh, I mean, I think in the end, it really is so impactful once you do start to see, okay, I don't need 1 million followers. I don't even need 1,000 followers. There are people who do so much with a smaller amount of people because the community is real and it's genuine and it's authentic, rather than having these big vanity metrics where sure, people might be following you because you went viral on a trend, but do they actually know you? Do they actually know what you do? Do they know what you're about? And so when the goal is actually building those connections and building a community, those people are far more likely to buy that product, or go to the masterclass, or become one of your clients because they believe you, they know you, they like you, they trust you, rather than
Yeah.
just being, "Oh yeah, that's that person that I started following a couple months ago, but like why did I follow them?" you know
Yep, absolutely.
Mhm.
Um, Okay, so last time we talked, you said a quote about mindset, going back to that I wrote down because it was so great. And this is what I want to kind of end on. I love it. So we talked in this conversation about a lot of tips, a lot of best practices, gave people a lot of simple, easy ideas to go create content. And that's all awesome. And I also want to say, you might still have blocks, and this might take a while to get in there.
Yes.
So this is why I love this quote. You said, with anything, if it's to the detriment of your mindset, then it's not worth it.
Right.
And that was so great. So whatever best practices are out there, whatever you're supposed to be doing, there's a level of like easing yourself into it, getting past. You talked about the difference between being a little uncomfortable and
Mhm.
having some like overall mindset overwhelm. Can you just tell me a little bit about your thoughts there?
Yes, absolutely. So I think, we all have that element of discomfort, like we were talking about that spotlight effect or sharing ourselves on the internet in a vulnerable way. And that discomfort is an opportunity for growth. But if it is coming in this place where you're like, I have this project that I need to finish and I still haven't posted on Instagram but I've been consistent, in the past few months, and I also need to make my kids dinner and I need to do all these things, and you're like, okay, I'll just stay up until 2 a.m. to finish this post. Not worth it. Not worth it. That's not the discomfort of posting. That's the, oh, okay, I'm a little overwhelmed right now. And it is okay if you miss a day. It is okay if your goal is 2 to 3 times a week or even once per week. If that's the goal and you're meeting that and you're feeling guilty about missing one day, that's where you need to take a step back and say, okay, so is this at the expense of my mental health, at the expense of, my sleep or my relationship with my family or how I'm connecting with other people or how I'm connecting with myself? That's when you stop and you say, okay, I can skip this day. I can
Mhm.
up 15 minutes earlier and post in the morning instead of staying up and scrambling, because in the end, you're going to post something that you're not proud of, that doesn't really represent you, that you scrambled to create, and it's going to be diluted, and that message isn't going to hit the way that it should and the way that it can. And so I think that there's a fine balance between kind of pushing through and persevering in the midst of, oh, I really don't want to post this, but I know that this message is really good, but like I literally have food in my teeth in this video. And it's like, okay, that's really not going to be to the detriment of your mental health or your physical health. But if you're like, I have been scrambling, it's been a really rough day, and I still need to post on Instagram, throw the phone away. Just don't
Mhm.
even take care of yourself first and foremost, because that I'm not like I'm a woo-woo kind of girl, but I'm not too woo-woo. But really, that energy will be felt on the phone,
Oh,
on the video.
yeah.
You're gonna see it. Somebody will be scrolling, and then they'll be like, "Huh, interesting," and they'll keep going. They'll keep going by. It's just not
Yeah.
worth
Yep.
to put yourself through hell just to post on the internet, because it's really, in the end, it's not the end of the world, and you can take care of yourself first and foremost.
Oh, love that. That is just, I try to keep that sentiment right there in everything that I do. So that is just wonderful to tie that back into social media. And you can just like feel the relief when you hear that. So thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing all of these wonderful tips and just this beautiful outlook on what social media can be for people.
Yes, I mean, it's fun. It really can be fun, especially if you are able to shift that mindset from overwhelm to excitement and leaning into the moments that you feel inspired and you feel motivated, and letting go in the moments that you feel overwhelmed and busy with other things. It makes it that much easier to actually show up online.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for the conversation, Olivia. This was
Thank
great.
you. Thank you for having me, Jess, and
Yes.
I'm excited to see what comes of this.
Absolutely.